Okay, today we're going to talk briefly about the sequence of events that can lead to spinal stenosis. Um, all right, it's time to talk about how these changes happen in your back. So, how do we figure this out? Well, it's kind of like if you wanted to learn how houses are built. A good start would be to go to a new housing development and take a look around. Walking around, you would no doubt be able to see many houses in their various stages of completion, and thus get a good idea of how the finished ones got to be that way. It's in a similar fashion that back researchers have been able to get a good idea of the changes that lead to spinal stenosis. Just like observing a new housing development, scientists have closely examined large numbers of autopsy specimens of the lumbar spine of different ages. And based upon such observations, scientists have been able to piece together the sequence of events that lead to spinal stenosis. Now, there are a couple of ways to look at this whole process. The first one looks at the development of spinal stenosis from an anatomical or nuts and bolts point of view. It goes something like this. The changes that lead to spinal stenosis typically begin in the disc. Discs have a tendency to get less plump as we age, and injuries can make the disc break down to varying degrees over time. As the disc starts to get less plump, the vertebrae get closer together. This then throws more stress than normal on the facet joints, which in turn causes them to get bigger over time. The ligamentum flavum also gets thicker as a result of abnormal stresses in the area. All these changes, the disc getting thinner, the facet joints getting larger, and the ligaments getting thicker, all narrow the holes where the spinal cord and spinal nerves pass through, and thus create spinal stenosis. Okay? The other way of describing the sequence of events leading to spinal stenosis is to think about in terms of how much motion there is in the spine at the various points in the process. Looking at spinal stenosis this way, scientists have found three distinct stages that go something like this. Problems for the spine begin the dysfunction stage. As the disc begins to lose its plumpness due to age and injury, researchers look at spine specimens that are in this stage, usually see tears in the disc and irritation of the facet joints. This leads to the instability phase. Now that the disc has lost some of its plumpness and is starting to get thinner, the vertebrae begin to move closer to each other. This in turn throws abnormal stresses of the facet joint, causing the vertebrae to start moving around excessively, so you have excessive motion, and become unstable to varying degrees. Researchers look at spine specimens in this stage, typically see facet joints that move too much, increase laxity, and find discs that are becoming pretty disrupted on the inside. Last comes the stabilization phase stage. As the results of enlarged facets and bony overgrowths called osteophytes, the vertebrae usually lose motion and start to become once stable again. So your body's just trying to stabilize itself. So it kind of goes through this instability phase, and then eventually, if you live long enough, it starts to stabilize it. Now, once the vertebrae at a particular level of the spine stiffen up and lose motion, this throws more stresses on the vertebrae directly above it. So if you think of your spine like a bunch of stacked one on top of the other, if you knock out the motion in one segment, the one above it always has to take the stress. This increased stress usually wears down the above vertebrae and disc, and the whole process tends to repeat itself. This is how spinal stenosis can spread from one level of spine to the next one above it, eventually affecting many different levels of the back. So that's according to the research.